how we doing? This hearing of the Committee on Agriculture, Veterans, Broadband, and Rural Development for Wednesday, February 5th, 2025 is now in session. Today, it is Dairy Day, so we get to talk all things milk. First, we're going to have a presentation from Minnesota milk producers on the Dairy Producer of the Year. Then we'll have a presentation on the state's dairy industry from the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. And last, we will be hearing a bill as well today from Senator Utke about dairy development and profitability enhancement continuation in dairy business planning grant appropriations. So that's the agenda for today. Our first order of business is the presentation from Minnesota milk producers on the Dairy Producer of the Year. Folks, if you could, please come on up. And for you and for everyone today, if you would please remember to state your full name for the record and then commence your testimony when you're ready. Mr. Sjostrom, are you?
I'll introduce them if that's all right, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I have with me Pat and Jody Luneman, who I know can take some questions or comments after the video plays, but I think Mr. Roth has a video ready to go, and I don't know that there's a better way to introduce them than to talking slowly so we can get to the video, then introduce the video. But Minnesota Milk has a long tradition of awarding Producers of the Year. They are awarded on what they do in the community, what they do, of course, legislatively here at the Capitol. I'm proud to call Pat and Jody longtime friends. Pat was actually my first boss when I started here at Minnesota Milk, and they are from Clarissa, Minnesota, and they and their family have built a wonderful farm that I hope we're able to see real soon.
Mr. Luneman, could you tell us stories about Lucas as a young employee while we get this set up?
Senator, I do have plenty of dirt on Lucas, but in the nature of the decorum here, I'll dispense with that.
Are you sure? We're still stalling for another minute or two. Actually, if you like, you're welcome to share a little bit about your path to dairy farming or anything of that nature that's not in the video.
Oh, so if you're
there it is. Never mind.
ready for the video, I'm saved.
I'm Pat Luneman, the third generation half owner of Twin Eagle Dairy, Clarissa, Minnesota.
And I'm Jody Luneman, his wife, 42 years, and I've been here all those years. When I found out that we were going to be the award recipient, I was very happy, I was very proud. He's worked really hard and put in a lot of time and effort. Years. Very deserving.
Yeah. For us.
In
1983, Jody and I officially took over the dairy. For the first number of years, we had a 50-stall, high-stall expansion barn.
We do something at time as an element. You're milking. He was the main milker, so he was milking certain time in the morning and certain time in the evening, and that cut into what family time there was.
We got what's called Twin Eagle Dairy built in 1996, a freestall barn with a parlor, and that was quite the experience getting the dairy up and running on a brand new site. But since then, we've just been evolving and growing through the years to the point today where we're more in the 800 to 900 cow category.
So I taught all the time. Yeah, I had 1 year off until I retired in 2015.
Even though we're not working side by side.
Give us 1 minute. We're going to pause.
I think we're going to pause and start it over, folks, if that's okay with you guys, once we sort some of our technical considerations. So I guess we can talk amongst ourselves for a minute or two.
Mr. Chair and members, we do have testimony from the current president of Minnesota Milk. Maybe move that up because that is prepared and doesn't take too much technology.
That's an excellent idea, Mr. Sjostrom.
With that, I'd like to introduce Garrett Luthens, our president from Hutchinson, Minnesota.
Mr. Luthens, if you could state your full name for the record and commence your testimony when you're ready.
Garrett Luthens, President of Minnesota Milk. Chairman Putman, committee members. My name is Garrett Luthens, President of Minnesota Milk Producers Association for the past year and a longtime board member. Minnesota Milk works hard to represent Minnesota's 1,625 dairy farms, even though membership in Minnesota Milk is voluntary. I farm with my family just east of Hutchinson. I, like many other dairy farms, invest in the future of my community. I serve on the school board and the township and support local government because I plan to be at my location for my entire life. Minnesota Milk also represents farmers who want to be around the next generation. So that means in harmony with our neighbors, the environment, and of course, our financial partners. Those goals represent our policy priorities for this year. Countless farms have told us they have great trouble complying with new employment laws that have been passed and are being implemented. The seasonal rotation of dairy farming makes it much more difficult for us to fit into the standard 9-to-5 employment box. During harvest, which most dairy farms do 5 times a year with their crops, but also 365 days with their cows. Our workloads are higher and simply more unique than just about any other occupation. I cannot tell you which day harvest will be. That's up to Mother Nature. We'd ask for recognition for agriculture's special place as Minnesota's employer and a special place in trying to adapt to Mother Nature within the Earn and Sick Safe Time Law, the medical leave, and the Secure Choice Retirement Plan. Second, we love to help our permit process at the county and state level improve for everyone. We propose allowing the county and state permit process to happen at the same time as the state process and environmental review. Today, the farms must grow through an expensive and time-consuming state process first, without knowing whether they'll get their local and less expensive permit. We weren't asking for changes in number of regulations themselves either, just the process and the way we examine the applicant. Finally, we appreciate what you do as legislators to support the programs that support the dairy industry. Bills and laws that support our dairy industry, like the dairy profit teams, bill that you will hear, did they hear it earlier, Lucas? A little bit. Thank you, so it'll be later. Thank you. Livestock investment grants, the dairy with an I, that was a rebate that the state provided for our farmers in Minnesota to go with the federal program. And while the federal bill is yet to be reauthorized, it is one of our largest supports for the dairy industry here. And with that, we thank you for being partners with us.
Thank you, Mr. Luthens. Members, do we have any questions or comments for President Luthens? Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, question on the current status with the dairy program, Dairy with an I, and the federal milk support program. Is it currently in place? Is it currently waiting for the reauthorization of the farm bill, so it's not in place until then? I haven't followed those details closely, so I'm just wondering. I keep hearing reference to the farm bill needing to pass, but my assumption is maybe it's still in place under any sort of continuing resolutions, but any information you have on it, and I'm not trying to stump you, so if it's not any more that you know, that's fine too. I just wondered if you did.
President Luthens.
In regards right now, Minnesota Milk was trying to keep those funds at play in Minnesota, so we're waiting for the federal government to do theirs currently so we can keep it together. If that answers your question.
Senator Westrom, I'd say that we, in our budget discussions in the past, have endeavored to make sure that stays safe.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Sure. Members, any other questions? Senator Dornick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, I'd heard, some of the difficulties that you have with some of the mandates that you had mentioned during sick and safe time. Can you share a little bit more with us how they're implementing it and some of the members and what you're hearing from producers?
President Luthens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the Earn and Sick Safe time, I will speak just to my examples. It's more of the implementation of doing it. We already have some certain latitudes on our own But now it's just the process of going through what's going to happen next. For example, when this becomes fully implemented, likely for our farm and our employees, in which any other business, we will cover the tax on it, because it's going to happen. That's one, the challenge is it's going to be another wage pressure.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Dornick.
so the earned sick and safe time is already in. You're
I was referencing
the paid family leave, then, is what you were referencing.
you want, Chair?
Mr. Luthens.
Are you asking about the ESST?
Yes, please.
In that reference, we're speaking to, in agriculture, we have, it's already difficulties of having employees apply already, and then tracking it. Most farms already, average size dairy, it's 150 cows in Minnesota, roughly. Not everybody has that large of an accounting and HR. So then it's tracking this down. Most of us are going to already front load it. Then we have to hopefully find the right candidates there to be with us. So it's the rotating door, and then trying to cover that person also. This is the struggle of just finding enough applicants to begin with. And then moving forward to making sure they don't job hunt and jump around.
Senator
Those
Dornick,
are
any
just,
things?
go ahead, General.
Sure. Senator Dornick, any other final statements?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I grew up on a dairy farm, and things are different. You know, back then we had a bunch of kids, everybody had kids, and the work. And my dad always said, you don't go to work, it surrounds you, right? So why don't you just share a little bit what a typical day is like, and what it's like to milk cows and all the things that go into that, just briefly. Just what time you get up and just the typical day and what time you get done. I know back when I did it, I know those, and it was a great life, but it was definitely, you learned the work ethic and just how hard you work, and thank you for what you do, and we appreciate your work.
Senator Dornick, if I may, can I ask that we sort of pause on that? We watch the video and then we talk through the average day of a dairy farmer in that context after seeing the video. Is that okay? I think that might work a little bit better if that's right with you guys. I think we should be ready to go.
So I'm Pat Luneman, the third generation half owner of Twin Eagle Dairy from Clarissa, Minnesota.
And I'm Jody Luneman, his wife of 42 years, and have been here all of those years. When I found out from Pat that we were going to be the award recipients, I was very happy. I was very proud. He's worked really hard and put in a lot of time and effort over all these years. It's very deserving for you.
For us.
For us. Yes.
In 1983, Jody and I officially took over the dairy herd. For the first number of years, we had a 50-stall, tie stall and stanchion barn.
We both could see long-term that something had to change. Time is an element. You're milking, and he was the main milker, so he was milking a certain time in the morning and a certain time in the evening, and that cut into what family time there was.
We got what's called Twin Eagle Dairy, built in 1996, a freestall barn with a parlor, and that was quite the experience getting the dairy up and running on a brand new site. But since then, we've just been evolving and growing through the years, and to the point today where we're more in the 800 to 900 cow category.
So I've taught all the time. Yeah, I had 1 year off until I retired in 2015.
Even though we're not working side by side, Jody and I are really full partners in the scheme of things. My assistant manager, Beth, that's been with us for over 30 years. She lives 42 miles away, but she makes the commute to be part of our team.
I had it in my heart that I always wanted to be around animals, and so after high school I got into dairy farming and milking. Providentially, I found a job, here with Pat milking and Jody with milking in the barn. No, at that point, I never ever thought that I would be here, decades later and enjoying it and loving it.
And we've got Cesar, the herdsman, who's been with us 18 years, and he pretty much runs the cow part of the operation.
I like with the cows. Yeah, I like the bus. The bus is pretty good.
And then we have Javier and Marina in the calf barn, and they do a fantastic job of raising calves, and have been a tremendous asset over the years, and on their own. They're, you know, they've been Todd County Family Farm of the Year for their own family, and then they bring those strengths to us at Twin Eagle Dairy.
When coming here, I see the good dairy farm, and my boss is really, really nice, no? So, and I like the job, and I'm stay here.
And we have others as well. I mean, we've had one of our longest term employees, who's Ray, that we haven't talked about yet today, with us for 24 years. He fed cows here for almost 20 years.
Probably when we've been married about a year, I suppose. The summer, following summer, I think we went to a young farmer thing in Land O'Lakes. Wasn't that just a year after, I think? Just, it recharged him. I could see that.
At the age of 28, I was elected to the Land O'Lakes corporate board. I got off the Land O'Lakes board, came home. That's when we expanded the dairy, built a new freestall barn and parlor. And then a few years later, I was elected to the Minnesota Milk Board. I spent 18 years as a director at Minnesota Milk, and I was president for 9. For a few years, I was also involved in AURI, not on their main board, but on a side board. And then after I was done with that, then I was elected to the Minnesota Agri-Growth Board. I'm in my 20th year on the Agri-Growth Board, longest serving board member at this point. One of the last things that I've been involved in was being appointed to the Governor's Climate Change Advisory Council, and that's allowed me to work side by side with people in the Governor's administration on talking about and trying to solve climate change. I'm happy to serve. I believe service to community, whether it's here locally, in town, or at a state or a national level, I believe it's important that people get involved.
I mean, look in the picture over there. I picture right now, wow. I started the cows, I mean, here in 2006, it's 400. Right now, it's 820. You see, it's a lot of difference. But it's for the business, for every people, not only for the me, the boss, it's for every people.
They put a lot of hard work into this business. They're a good family, compassionate, caring people, good people to work for, and they're good operators and have contributed a lot to our dairy industry.
It does mean something, and I'm very proud of what we've done. And to be recognized that, again, as I said, by our peers, really touches me deep within, touches my heart, and I'm thankful for the award.
Folks, let's give it up for the Lunamans, can we? Thank you so much for all your work and all your dedication. It amazes me that you have time to do anything. You must be incredibly busy people, and it's very much appreciated. And I also just want to say personally how impressed I am by the composition of the video itself, because it's clearly a group project, what you do. And it's nice to see that level of respect that you show for the folks who work with you, and that they show for you too. It's a pretty great thing to see. Are any of them here?
Chair Putnam, no. Last night we did have our whole family at our Minnesota Milk evening event. So I don't know that it was mentioned in the video, but we have 5 sons and 1 daughter, and daughters-in-law and a son-in-law and 4 grandchildren. We only had 3 grandchildren that were not at the event where we had the video showing. So it was a special evening, and it's great to be here today with the Senate Ag Committee.
That's wonderful, and thanks for being here to educate us and let us be impressed by you. I think now would be a great time for your question, Senator Dornick, if you want to ask it again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, congratulations. That was impressive. And as Chair Putnam said, the work, all that you did, and then all the service you did in other areas. So very, very impressive, and thank you for that. So yeah, if you just want to give us a quick go through your day, and then having 5 sons and a daughter, that's awesome. So I'm sure you got to work together every day. So
Chair Putnam, members of the committee, my day when I was milking 50 cows versus when I'm milking, our farm has 900 has changed dramatically. For me, my day revolves around management and dealing with any issues that arise, working with people and managing the business and managing money is my key role. But on a dairy farm, there are so many different aspects and different things that we all need to do. So someone needs to manage the cows, and someone needs to manage the calves, and someone, the whole feeding area takes several hours. And, it's amazing with the technology we have today, how fast we can feed the number of animals that we have, but, that's a major effort. But my role is to pull all of that together and make sure that every day there's a tanker load of milk that leaves the driveway and heads to the cheese plant. And one day it might be Perham, and the next day it might be Melrose, and it's not my choice, but it's all going into, food for the citizens of this country and, probably around the world. And we're pretty proud of that.
Thank you, Senator Dornick.
Mr. Chair, just one final question for me. So many times do you milk a day, and how long does it take? I know some of the bigger producers do it 3 times. Is that what you do?
Mr. Lindeman?
Chair Putnam, members, we milk pretty much around the clock. So we have 3 8-hour shifts, and kind of the reason that we have the number of cows that we do is so that we have cows that fill a shift so that our employees can have a full 8 hours of work, and I have 8 hours of work for them. So typically, Caesar, our herdsman in the video, stated that we had 820 cows. That's 820 that are actually milking 3 times a day. And so it takes about 7.25 hours to milk those 820 cows. And then there's time for time to clean up and start all over again. And the cows go through the process. There's always feed for them, feed and water when they go back, and stalls to lay in. And it's just, cows are comfortable, and the day just rotates, 3 shifts a day.
Senator Dornick? Well, thank you. Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, if we can spare the time, but I just too want to echo your comments and Senator Dornick and Pat. If you one, do you have robots? But 2, I know we met in Alec and had lunch and talked about your operations and dairy issues. But talk a little bit about your decision to build and expand your dairy when you did, challenges you run across, and why you did it. And I'd invite your wife to chime in also, because I think I know the story in part, but I think it's a story that we need to hear as legislators, as the Ag Committee, because there's always this tension of size and bigger versus smaller. Automation means you can do more with same time, and there's other pressures. So talk to us about that, if you could, because I just think it would be, it's just good, real, authentic decision-making that goes on farms all across the state, if you will.
Chair Putnam, members, back in the late 1980s, we were still in our stall barn, and I could see that, it was getting more difficult, in the traditional stall barn to make things work. And we needed to find a system that hopefully was more labor efficient. And there was a a dairy just outside of Foley, one of the first freestall barns in the state that was of significant size and had a parlor. And I went to that 2 or 3 times, and, you know, I was looking at other dairies that had freestalls and parlors. And so we decided in the mid-1990s that we needed to make a change. We had to make a change in order to stay in the business long-term. We probably would have been fine for the next 10 years or so, but we needed to adjust to the dairy economy. And as you and the Ag Committee are aware, the business keeps changing. And we, as dairy farmers, need to be allowed to make adjustments so that we can be successful and profitable into the future. Now, every farm is different, but generally, there seems to be cow numbers that become part of the equation. And when you talk to your business advisors and your bankers and accountants, you know, the numbers have to work. And in order to drive new investment, it often calls for more cows, more operating units that bring in revenue. And that's really what's driving the size of the dairy farms in the state today, is the need to have that revenue. And, you know, the dairy prices that we're being paid today aren't really that much better than, you know, you look at it with an inflation factor figured in, we're pretty doggone efficient in, you know, in what we do. And to be able to make it on $20, that's like if back in the 80s, that would have been like $10 or $12. But just, you know, the state needs to recognize that farmers need to change and evolve. So as you look at your permitting processes, please don't handcuff us. Please allow us to make the changes that are necessary for our operations to survive and be successful. And Senator Westrom, to your answer about robots, we have robotic calf feeders, but we do not have a robot to milk the cows. Simply, if we would have had robots in the 1990s, I think that may have been the route that we would have gone, the path that we would have taken. But that technology was not here then. And we had the parlor technology, and we're still using the same parlor that we built in 1996. We've expanded it slightly. You know, that part of the operation, it's kind of like you buy a combine to harvest your grain, and you've got to make that combine get a full workout in order for it to earn its keep. So that's how I'll answer that question, and I'll turn it over to Jody to respond to Chair Westrom's, or Mr. Westrom's comments.
Thank you. Chairman and committee, I think you're probably referring back to in the video where I said something about time, you know, the time and the family and so on. And that was part of it was, you know, he was the main milker, and he was out in the barn at the times that I was teaching, so the kids went to daycare or to school, and I was gone. His downtime was the middle of the day, and none of us were home. You know, I came home, the kids came home, and he was heading out to the barn. And of course, the kids, as they grew, they contributed a lot over the years. So that there was some of that time. But we also saw all the neighbors that were older than Pat needing hip surgery or knee surgery or things like that. And it was like, okay, how much wear and tear are you putting on your body? And you're only in your 30s. Let's see, you know, well, you know, it was a good decision. He needed a challenge. And this was quite a challenge to get that up and running, I can tell you that. And then the fact that, yes, the kids were involved at the time, and, you know, they still have, they laugh about, you know, well, remember the time we did this or that. And so they were all, it was a great place for them to be and to contribute. And then they went to college and found jobs that were not quite so intensive. So for him to have stayed in and us to have continued the dairy this long without having gone this route would have been impossible, I believe. So, and
Senator
that's
Westrom.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you, Pat. That's about exactly what I thought the story was going to sound like. And It actually sounds quite similar because my dad was looking at those parlors and those changes that were necessary in the 80s, late 80s as well. And so it almost sends shivers up my spine hearing you say the story because I remember living it. In the end, we decided selling out because my brother and I weren't fully committed to the 24/7 lifestyle that goes with the dairy farm, and it's a lot of work. It's a good life, but it's the need and it's the reason that I think we've seen all the change and innovation. And I just want us to take this moment to soak that in because I think there's sometimes this broad brush that gets painted and it's like it's big business, it's corporate, it's pushing somebody else out, but it's kind of adapting like so many things in life have to adapt. And you found a way to make it work very well in our community. And we need dairy farms and we need cows. And so I just appreciate hearing that. And Mr. Chair, thanks for the time to indulge.
Thank you, Senator Westrom. Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pat, what kind of parlor system do you have? I've been to several farms where they have a 60 cow merry-go-round type of situation. I hear of 12 stall. What's your parlor system that you have at your farm?
Mr. Luneman.
Yeah. Chair Putnam, members, it's a double 12 parallel, which means we milk the cows from behind. And I put that style of parlor in because that is actually the safest way to milk the cows for the employee. So, and we have had, when you look at, work comp, injuries in the workplace, we've had very few injuries in the parlor area. We've had couple crazy other ones somewhere else, but, people slip and fall in the ice. I can't do too much about that, but that's the answer for that question, Senator.
Senator Anderson. Members, any other questions or comments? Senator Kunish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It always impresses me so much every year when we see these videos of the work that you farmers do and how it involves the entire family. And Jody, the fact that you continue teaching all those years, probably to subsidize the farm and add to the ability to expand it in the way that you did and to allow your husband to do some of those other things that, not only were contributing to farms and to the agriculture in Minnesota, but your own personal growth and those sort of things. And a lot of times, sometimes I feel like the women get lost in the story, obviously not here, because you were very clear that it was a good partnership. But I remember going up to my auntie's and uncle's house in Farmington in, Pine City, especially during the holidays. And they'd be milking, and we'd get out there, and my uncle would squirt us with milk, and Regina would be in the house baking, cooking all the food, and having all those children. And so from all of those experiences, I just think what an incredible role the women, the wives, play in the story of farms and agriculture. Last year, we had our very first Women in Agriculture Day here at the Capitol. I know we'll have it again this year, and we'll have to make sure we get a special invite out there. But I just wanted to say that and recognize and acknowledge, your role and the role of women in agriculture, because they always say behind a really good man is a really good, even better woman. And I think in this case, you guys made a great partnership, so thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Gustafson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for being late. I had a meeting that ran long, and then I had to get the ice cream because I'm not going to say no to that. I just wanted to say thank you too, and add on to what people are saying. I unfortunately only have, as I look at this list here, one dairy farm in my Senate district, but I grew up in Stearns, Benton County, and there's a lot there. My best friend in high school was a dairy farmer. Can't tell you how many Friday nights were spent helping her dad clean up in the barn, and then bright and early Saturday morning, being out to help as well. So I just want to say thank you for all of the work. I know it's really hard, and I know especially dairy can be particularly tough, especially on family schedules. So I just, want to say thank you, want you to know that you have many allies at this table and in this committee, and if there are things that we can do to help, or just you need somebody to communicate a concern with, my door's always open, and I know I'm not the only one, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gustafson. And members, any other comments, questions? Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chair, there was a handout here that says Minnesota Dairy Farms by county in 2023, and I'm looking for Washington County, and I don't see Washington County on the.
Well, Senator Anderson, in a couple moments, we can grill the commissioner and ask him why he's neglected to put Washington County on his handout.
MIA?
Yeah, we'll take care of him in a couple minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. Members, any other questions? Thank you so much for spending your time with us. We very much appreciate it. And also for the work that you do. And you are tremendous ambassadors for Minnesota Milk and for Minnesota agriculture. So we're very grateful to have a chance to learn from you and to honor you as best we can. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you too, President Williams. Members, next order of business is presentation on the state's dairy industry from the Minnesota Department of Agriculture and a discussion about their handouts. Commissioner Peterson, if you would, please.
Mr. Chair, members, Tom Peterson, Commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and I really screwed this up. So I tried to do this myself because I thought it'd be really interesting to, Tom Peterson, Commissioner of Agriculture, I think I said that. But I was trying to make a point. And so I thought about every month we get a handout on dairy farm numbers, and we'll make sure we share that with you because I think it's really interesting. So we get two numbers, we get a report. That is it's kind of this piece. It's like a dairy activity piece, and I printed out the wrong, I have 23, and I meant to print out January 1st, 2025. And so we have the wrong deal there on the numbers that you were handed out. And sorry, that's my fault. And then the counties, I thought you were getting January 2025, but you got January 2023. So those numbers have dropped significantly across counties, and I will get you like the latest updated numbers on those. But what I wanted to do was kind of just lay a picture of dairy farms in Minnesota that, you know, I really take it personally, and something that we've worked really hard on is to see, you know, the hardest thing I open up every month is this report, and we see a decline in dairies. So in the handout that you have, for example, you have 1,971 dairies in the handout, but right now we have 1,678 permitted dairies, and that includes goat dairies, where we've actually seen an increase in goat dairies in the state. And so it reflects a drop of 293 dairies since we passed the Dairy with an Eye package, the $4 million 2 years ago. And so I think that's an important point that, you know, as the dairy, and this isn't a huge surprise, not necessarily unique to Minnesota. It did with the size dairies that we have. We kind of had a silver tsunami with dairy farmers. We knew that was coming with baby boomers, dropping off. We've also had, or retiring. We've also had, tough time with prices, especially 2 years ago. And I always say, keep in mind too, when a dairy farmer leaves dairying, they're not necessarily getting out of farming all the time too. And there's always that misconception. They might go into beef farming or crop farming, or they might have a son or daughter taking over, just didn't want to take over the dairy. But I think that's an important context just to, you know, set us up for as we're thinking about. And I would have highlighted, you know, that as you look around the committee, and I did look at the numbers for 25, that you do have a couple in Clay County, Redwood County. Wright County still has quite a few dairies, actually. But Mr. Chair, your county is the king with well over 300 dairies, and we know that Stearns County is very important county for our state. Some other economic pieces, we have about 440,000 dairy cows in our state, and in my time working in this 20-some years, that number really hasn't fluctuated much. It's been somewhere between 440 and 460,000 cows off and on, 470,000 cows, but the number of farms has gradually decreased. But our number of cows has stayed very steady throughout that. Our production, Minnesota ranks 7th in milk producing states, and that has dropped some. We used to be a little bit higher, and so we have been reducing that. Big news for right now, our top dairy export markets are Mexico, Canada, and China, as you can see, and so that's very complicated. And dairy issues with Canada, you could have a whole hearing on something like that someday if you ever wanted to. But we export $274 million of dairy products in 2023. That we're still gathering 24 data. So the percent of U.S. milk production in Minnesota, we produce not quite 5% of the total U.S. milk in our state. Oh, and so I was just handed an update that we have 5 farms in Washington County, so thank you. Really excited. And I wanted to just talk about some of the programs that MDA has. I do work closely on permitting with the MPCA, but that is not in the Department of Ag. But what you're going to hear, I'm going to try to tee up Senator Utke on his bill. And by the way, the department does support that bill. That is our base funding for that program for that year. And that is, we have 2 big programs outside of the Dairy with an Eye program. We have the Dairy Profitability Enhancement Team. I think as you call it, Mr. Chairman, the Dairy Super Friends program. And we do, out of the appropriation, we put $475,000 of that into the Minnesota Dairy Initiative. And then for the first time last year, we put $25,000 a year or $50,000 total to Minnesota milk producers. MDI works directly with farmers and farm families to utilize a flexible, custom-to-fit diagnostic approach to help farm families evaluate their whole farm. They have teams that come together to work on their profitability, productivity, sustainability, viability, and to help establish programs. We had 246 dairy farms enrolled in fiscal year 2023, and those farms milked a total of 64,000 cows, representing 13% of the state's dairy farms. And so I think it's a really good program. It's been here for a long time. It's the farmers that I know, I've never known a farmer in it who did not say that did not help them. The best thing I always heard was when my neighbor got into the program, it helped him increase the volume of milk per cow that he had. And so he got increase in the value, and that really helped his bottom line. Minnesota Milk was awarded a grant for the first time in fiscal years 2024 and 25 to create legacy conservation practice plans with local teams in southeast Minnesota. And so that another important piece that we've been working on. So that's a big piece of that, and we do have staff that can answer questions about that or during the bill. The other part of that appropriation is the Dairy Business Planning Grant. And last year, the committee, on a bipartisan nature, we did make some changes to allow dairy processors to apply for that grant. We appropriate 134 of the appropriation to that. And these are non-competitive grants to encourage business planning and modernization activities on Minnesota farms. So they might do a feasibility plan of expanding a dairy, environmental upgrades, and create strategies to transfer options to a family to a new owner. Also very important. And I think we also have staff here that work on those grants, and we've been trying to look at that. And we do think all that money, we've appropriated about half of that money for this fiscal year. A couple other big issues I just wanted to hit. I already talked about, we talked about the Dairy with an Eye program. Our intention, again, is to work with the committee, with the milk producers, Mr. Jostrom, really work to bring that money in. And so however we want to do it, the Farm Bill, we just passed another extension. They just opened another sign up for it. But that's for the current extension of the Farm Bill. We really don't know what we did, but what the committee did last year with that money is we extended it out till 2026, June 30th, 2026, and then we said after that date, and so next year, we could use the money for other things. But our intention is, from the department stance, is to use that for dairy, but look forward to working with you on that as we go forward. And we'll see. I don't think they're going to pass the farm bill before we get out of here. But I don't know this year. It's a little different. So a couple other programs. We have the Livestock Investment Grant. That's a legacy grant that we've had. That was really the first grant program in the Agri program. The Agri program, too, really kind of came out of creating a livestock investment grant a long time ago, and there is a priority in there for dairy. Part of that, too, we also have a meat, poultry, and egg processing, and we look to put $2.5 million in '25 into that program. We also have our RFA loans at the department, where we make loans to farmers through different pieces. One other issue I just wanted to highlight, in talking about the dairy industry a little bit, is the situation with the dairy processing in our state. And last year, a lot of you probably heard about First District Association having issues with their wastewater treatment. There was $10 million in the bonding bill last year that didn't pass. But we do need to, continue to work with them. I've worked closely with the MPCA, the city of Litchfield. But about a third of the farmers in the state's milk, a third of the farmers sell milk to First District. And so that is a real challenge, and we continue to work with them, whether that's on bonding, money through the PFA, through the USDA Rural Development, and others. And so I met with and talked with Senator Lang, but that is a big issue because it's in Senator Lang's district. But, when I look at Senator Westrom, Senator Putnam, Senator Dames, Senator Anderson, the farmers are in your districts that are affected by First District. And so we'll continue to work on that program too as well. And glad to answer any questions, and just want to reiterate, the department supports Senator Utke's bill.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Members, questions, comments for Commissioner Peterson? Senator Anderson.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Chair, the bill that's coming up, Senator Utke's bill, but you mentioned in your presentation, Mr. Peterson, about these dairy business planning grants. What size of those grants, if the legislation passes, will you be able to give out?
Commissioner Peterson.
Yeah. Do you want to answer the 5,000? Yeah. $5,000. Sorry, Mr. Chair, Senator Anderson, up to $5,000.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chair, and how many people will be qualified to access that?
Commissioner Peterson.
Mr. Chair, Senator Anderson, we have $134,000 available, and so I would have to do the math on that, and I'm not going to do that, but and we have allocated 55% of the budgeted amount for this fiscal year. We contracted all the dollars in 23 and 24, so they're not all $5,000. They vary. I'm not sure what the minimum is, but they vary up to $5,000.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions or comments for Commissioner Peterson? Thank you much for your time, Commissioner Peterson. Very much appreciated. Our next order of business is Senate File 825. Senator Utke, if you would, please. When you're ready, Senator Utke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, after Commissioner Peterson was up here, I think my bill is a good one. Everybody just vote green and we'll go home.
Sounds fair.
Okay, no. Let me tell you a little bit about it, and then we'll bring up a testifier to give you a little bit more. But Mr. Chair and members, thank you for hearing Senate File 825 this afternoon. This is the Dairy Development and Profitability Enhancement Program, and this was established in 1996 to help Minnesota dairy farms lower costs, improve milk quality, and increase profitability. The Dairy Profitability Enhancement Program provides information and assistance to dairy farms of all sizes. The program may consist of farm business management instructors, dairy extension specialists, and other dairy partners that may engage in financial analysis, risk management education, enhanced milk marketing tools and technologies, and facilitating or improving production systems, including rotational grazing. The other part of the program may award dairy business planning grants of up to $5,000 per producer. The grants could provide funding for the producers to develop a comprehensive business plan, evaluate modernization projects, test for stray voltage, or pursue other improvement activities while developing their business plan. In 2024, the program was expanded to include dairy processors also. A little funding history: the legislature provided $1 million for the biennium to establish a pilot program and create one dairy profit team, and this was back in 1996. The funding was increased to $2 million for fiscal year 2004 and 5, but during the budget reductions in 2009, the annual funding was reduced to $634,000 annually and has remained at that level up to the current time. Senate File 825 is asking that you continue the $634,000 annual appropriation for fiscal years 26 and 27. And with that, Mr. Chair, I think we have Lucas Sostrom, Executive Director of the Minnesota Milk Producers, who will add to our conversation on this bill.
Thank you, Senator Utke. Mr. Sostrom, if you would please just state your full name for the record and commence your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Utke. Committee members, I'd like to speak on behalf of strong support of Senate File number 825. You've heard much about this already, so I won't belabor the point, but I will say that I've been able to serve as a board member and ex officio board member on the Minnesota Dairy Initiatives, or Super Friends team, and see the work. And what these farmers are really doing is they're taking on a project. You heard them all listed. It might be transition planning. It might be a negative. It might be, I'm having a problem and we need to solve it. You heard the time commitment that dairy farmers have throughout the day, and so they're able to bring in experts to put a team around, and it could be a construction project or something that's solving a problem, and that's what these experts, who they probably already work with, but they get organized and allow them to move forward a lot faster. As you heard, we were able to receive $25,000 grants in the latest years and targeted them to Southeast Minnesota, farms that are doing conservation practices so we could track them, enroll them in other grants, and most importantly, I am a firm believer, and our organization's a firm believer, the fastest way to teach other farmers about how to implement conservation practices is by farmers implementing conservation practices, trying, failing, having meetings on such. So I think those are the two major portions of the Dairy Profit Teams bill. We've already talked about the dairy business planning grants, which, by the way, are typically a 50-50 match. So if it's a $5,000 grant, the farmer's also putting in $5,000 of their own money. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you support the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Sostrom. We are big fans of the Dairy Super Friends team, as we like to affectionately refer to them. But I do actually have a question, maybe for Senator Utke or perhaps for our friends from MDA. Can we explain a little bit about the interaction or relationship, either financial or practical, between this group and FBM, for example? So could someone be doing both at the same time? Is that where folks are coming from? Do you know those things? Or this is awesome to watch, by the way.
Are you watching this?
Yeah, everyone's looking at that. We did an actual circle around the room, those of you who couldn't see. You could please state your full name for the record and commence your testimony when you're ready.
Cammie Schoenfeld. I work for the Minnesota Department of Ag, and I manage the dairy grants. And I also am a former FBM instructor that served on MDI teams. Hence, the looks came to me. The teams can be open to anybody that the farmer chooses, and usually the MDI coordinator work together. I won't say all, but a lot of them have farm business management people that help bring that financial cash flow, studying what-if scenarios. If we build this barn, how it affects cash flow. So it's not necessarily, they don't have to have an FBM instructor, but it's a very common thing to have an FBM instructor.
So, Ms. Schoenfeld, if you don't mind, so it would be common for someone to have someone from this program and an FBM individual, and the FBM individual would be dealing primarily with more financial considerations, while the dairy helping person would be more technical in nature.
The MDI coordinator usually does more of the coordination, meeting minutes, following through, scheduling events. They're really serving as that manager of the meeting, writing agendas.
Great. Thanks very much. Members, any other questions or comments? Senator Utke, do you have any final statements? For the
Thank you,
bill,
Mr.
not
Chair.
forever.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the hearing, and we can, however you're planning on processing this through, I imagine you'll lay it over?
That's the plan, yes, Senator
Okay,
Utke.
thank you very much.
Sure. So Senate File 825 will be laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you, Senator Utke. All right, folks, moving forward. As many of you know, we meet at the same time as the Subcommittee on Veterans and Military Affairs. This upcoming Monday will be a meeting of that subcommittee, so it will not deal with agriculture-related content. For future planning, every second Monday will most likely be a day dedicated to Veterans and Military Affairs. The other 3 days in the 2-week period will be dedicated to agriculture. When we come back a week from today, there's a good chance we're going to be talking a lot about the University of Minnesota, the GREET program, and things like Forever Green. Just a spoiler for the future. Thanks a lot for being here, everybody. We are now adjourned.